Today we're going to be making a mechanic that works on mobile to swipe and throw a physics-based object. And we'll dive right into it. It's a tough topic, by the way, but it's pretty cool. So the first thing you need to know about the swipe mechanic is that it is primarily only on the local scripting side of things. So what I recommend doing is creating a local script for every player that enters the world. And this is great for your mobile players because it allows you to change their camera mode and so many other features. So you're going to use this for anything else. And if you've done some of our others, you might have this part already built. But the first thing we're going to need to do is create a script. And I like to call this, I'm going to rename, I'm just going to do it slightly different than usual. I'm going to call it utility, because it's utility. It's a local script. So we'll call it utility local. And there's like a manager version. So we'll create the manager first, which is an entity script, entity. And it's really not a manager, it's an assigner. So it's assigning this local script, assigner. So we have the utility local assigner underscore entity and create. And then we're gonna need another script called the utility local per player underscore entity and create. So now we've got one that assigns each of these per player entity scripts to each player as they enter the world. So now that we've got this idea set up, we can start scripting it. So we'll go click three dots and open. Still getting used to that, not saying edit. Now we'll go ahead and drag this into your view. There we go. Yes, I trust. Do I trust? Maybe not as much as I'd like to, but anyway, it's fine. Here we have the assigner. Now this assigner script is just going to be like all the other scripts I ever write. I'm going to zoom it in for you, just one click, maybe two clicks there. That should be easier to read. And so I delete the top line, delete the HZ dots. This is my personal preference, control period, enter. And now I've got it explicitly importing. Now that we got this set up, this is going to need to be a local assigner. So this is like the manager I mentioned. And what we need to know is when a player enters the world, we need to assign a script to them. So we need a pre-start. And in pre-start, we're going to need to connect the code block event from self, this dot entity. And then that is the code block events dot player enter world. So I'll grab player enter world. And I'm not sure why I can't see my screen anymore. There we go. Parentheses, that's received with a player. And then arrow function. Maybe I went too big. Let's go control minus. Okay, that's probably better. And now we need to call the local event, which I haven't created yet, but it'll be this dot player enter world, parentheses, passing in the player parameter. All right, should be pretty familiar with this. If you're not familiar with this, this might be too advanced of a topic, but feel free to continue like pushing through. You might learn quite a bit. We're now going to create that local player enter world method, which is receiving the player parameter, which is of type player, and curly braces. All right, so now we know when every player enters the world. We now need an array of all of these local things, and that's going to require us to create a data file. So let's go back over here, scripts, create a new script, which is going to be called util local underscore data. And click enter. So now we've got this data file that we can store each of the local per players in. So now we're going to go back into our scripts, go to our sidebar, double click on the data file. I'm also going to double click on this one to get both of those opened up. Double clicking opens it, whereas single clicking just like temporarily opens it. It's kind of weird. Now for our data file, we don't need anything that's in there. So we're going to delete this. We're going to type export constant. And if you've been following along with other tutorials, you know that I like to call this, pretty much call it local utils? Nah, this is different. This one's different. Oh, that's so weird. Never mind. Util local underscore data. We're going to do that. That mimics our normal approach for data files. And then equals curly braces. So we're creating a JSON object that we can then store anything in. And the first thing we need to do before that is create what we want to export, which is an array of these entities. And so we need to say constant, and then this is an entities array, so we'll call these local per player entities, and that will be of type entity array which will then equal an empty array. And we can now export that down here by simply typing local enter, comma. So now that we have our local per player entities constant being exported inside of this JSON object, we can now access it from our local per player entity. I'm going to go ahead and set this up just like we did before, deleting the top line, deleting the HZ dots, and control period, enter. All right, now that we have this set up, we can then in our, I prefer to put this in pre-start, and in pre-start we want to add to that data file. And so we're going to say if parentheses util local data dot local per player entities dot includes parentheses this dot entity and then curly braces, and then we want it to be not included, so we add the not operator or the exclamation point at the beginning. So we're saying if not included in this array, then we want to add ourselves to that array. So we can say utility local data dot local entities dot push, which is what adds to the array, and we push ourselves in this dot entity. All right, so now we are adding ourselves to the data array, and we can now be assigned to that player. Now, before we forget, we need to come back over here to our scripts here in Horizon, and the per player one, go to the 3 dots and change execution mode to local, so that way it can actually run on a player's headset. And so what you need to note here is that this data file will exist in a lot of different places. So it'll exist on the server, and this script, the local per player script, starts on the server. And so because it starts on the server when the world starts, that's when it's adding itself to the data. We probably will set assign this back to the server, and then it's going to try to add itself again, because every time you transfer ownership of a script, it reruns the start methods. And so that if statement is preventing it from adding multiple times to this data file. And then when it's assigned to the player, there's another copy of this local data file that has no data in it because it's a brand new copy on that player's headset. And it still adds itself to that, but it's only adding itself to it. Just don't use this local data on this per player script other than to initialize, and you should be good. Because data basically has to be sent in a networked event, which you'll see it a little bit when we're actually communicating between this and the beach ball. So you'll see that momentarily. Okay. So now that we got our pre-start set up and we have added this to the array, we can now say when player enters world, we want to get the ID of the player. And so we'll just type, first we're going to go into the data file, utility local data, dot per player entities, and then square brackets. And this square brackets allows us to get an item from the array. And the item we want to get is at the index of the player. So we say player.index.get, and that will get the local per player entity that matches that player's index. The first player to enter the world has index 0. Then the second player should have index 1, and so on and so forth. And as those players leave, those indexes open up, and a new player joins and replaces that index. And if you hover over the index, you'll see that it says, and I'll tell you this isn't true, it says that it can be max players -1. So imagine you have 16 player worlds, 15 is the 16th index because 0 is the first. So 15 is the 16th index, which is why max players -1. The problem is, it is possible to have more than the maximum players in the world. It happens occasionally, not super frequently. We believe it is tied to having players who edit the world inside the world causes it to go over, or players who test the world. So what we recommend doing is having 2 additional of these local per player entities in case it goes over by 2. So now that we've got this set up, let's oh, we've got it, but we haven't done anything with it. So let's say constant player entity equals, in case we want to do more than one thing with it. And then what we'll do is say that player entity dot owner dot set to the player. Now you could have just added this owner dot set right here at the end, but I wanted to make this readable, so that's why I've created a constant, just to make this a lot easier to read what's happening. So we're getting the player entity, and then we're setting the owner of the player entity to the player. Now when the owner is set, that's going to rerun the start method as we see up here. And what I recommend doing in start is saying if parentheses, and what we want to know is who is the server player. So you say constant server player equals, and then you say world.get server player. now we've gotten the server player. The server player is a player representation of the server where all the code initially runs. And then we can also get the owner. So we say constant owner equals this.entity.owner.get. And if it's running on the server, then these two are equal. But if it's not running on the server, this is the player who has been just assigned. So we can say if owner does not equal server player, curly braces, then we can say console.log parentheses player, owner dot name dot get, and that should give us just some clarity that this is actually working. And Shift Alt F, Control Save, that looks good. And so this is where you do any sort of initialization that you need to do when a player is assigned, is whenever this is run. If you needed to do assigning when it's not run, you could use an else, which you could do this line of code right here in this else, but I find this is just a little bit, it's safer, I feel like. Anyway, this is just personal preference, either or would work. Okay, so now that we have our initialization ready to go, we now need to create these entities so that the script actually runs, because as of right now, there is nothing running this script, and we're going to use empties for that. So we'll go down to our gizmos, before, just under gizmos, you'll find empty object, and this one will be called the local assigner. And this will then, I would like to move these to 0, 0, 0. So I'll go 0, 0, 0. Really debating that right now for this one specifically. I actually think we should move this up to like 20. So I'm going to press F to focus it. So well above the world, maybe not 20, maybe let's go to 10. F to focus, there we go. So we're like above the world a little bit. You could move this to a different location, but you're going to want to see the number of copies of the local per player empties. Now we're going to go ahead and attach that local assigner script. There we go. And maybe we'll add the util at the beginning, because you might imagine there being something else with a similar name at some point. So this util will very clearly indicate what it is. And now that we have this set up, I would recommend turning off animation because it's not actually animated. And we can then Control D to duplicate it, W, slide it up. And then this one will be the util local per player. So we'll change the name, per player. There we go. And then we'll change the script. So remove script, attach script, local per player. It's giving me a weird error. I think I have to let go and re-grab it. I've had this before. There it is. You'll discover weird bugs in Horizon as you use the desktop editor. it's a thing. You just got to learn how to work around them. All right, so now we've got our util local per player, and we've got our util local assigner. Now this will work for a one-player world because it's just me, but let's make sure it's set up for a 16-player world. So we'll slide this over to the left. We'll hit Control D. W-click. If you click W, it switches to this move tool, by the way. And then we can select both. Control D and slide up. Now we've got 4. We'll select all 4 of those. Interesting. This new numbering system, that was not there before. I like that a lot. Control D. And now we can do that one more time. Control D. And slide that up. There we go. Okay, so now we can see that we have 16. The only problem being that we know that we should have 2 more than the world capacity, so we'll duplicate it one more time. And for reference, if you haven't done this before, you can change your player count from 3 dots, player settings, and here we can drag this up to 16. And I do recommend increasing your suggested minimum player count to match. If you're building a 16-player world, you probably want 16 players in it. And we'll go ahead and press save. Okay. So now with that set up, we can easily see how many of those there are, and that's nice. All right, so we got our console ready. We're hitting world simulation on. We are jumping into the world, and you can see that it is printed Vidyuu to the console, which means that our script has functioned as intended. Now that is a lot. That is an absolute lot of prep work. 14.5 minutes of prep work to get this thing ready to go for swiping. Meta, make it easier. But anyway, now that we have this all prepared and ready to go, we can now start getting into the actual swiping code. So to show you more about this, I'm going to show you how I learned about it, basically by going to the types folder, double-clicking on Horizon Core, and then inside of the Horizon Core type definition file, you can press Command F and search for, I believe it's swipe. And when we search for swipe, we can see focused interaction, swipe. When players use swipe and drag inputs, you receive length, start width, end width, start color, end color. That doesn't seem right. That seems interesting. Focused interaction trail options. Okay, we're not in the right one. There's 2 swipes. This is... maybe it's not swipe. Let me try to remember what it was called. And sometimes this is hard because this document is an unbelievable 10,000 or something like that, 7,000 lines of code. So, and then there's multiple types folders, so it could be in a different one as well. Like it might be under UI, but I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's in this one. There was swipe right. Maybe it's not in this one. Let's try going over here and searching for swipe. And no. It could be something that we need to import. So if we go to scripts, you can go down to the gear icon, go to APIs, and there's certain APIs you can turn on. Capturing editor, mobile gestures, here it is. So we need to turn on the mobile gestures scripting API and press apply. I've only done this in theory, guys. This is my first time actually doing it. So bear with me. And with that, we can now go back to our folders icon here, and under types, you will now find the mobile gestures, and we'll go ahead and close out a core. And so here we are in mobile gestures. Inside of mobile gestures, we can then find, we have some touch info. When did the touch happen in milliseconds since the epoch? So we can now know when a touch, like what is touch info? And touch info is interaction info. So interaction info, if we click on that. So there's lots to learn here. This one's a lot simpler. Like as terms of like code, there's only 200 lines of code. Like I would recommend reading this whole thing. We won't do it together, but this is probably worth reading. You can see there's on pinch, on pan. We're looking for this on swipe. And so we can see that it connects to this event for swipe gestures. So there's an event system that we can receive swipes from. There's a class of gestures. And hey, we even got some examples here. And this is what I've seen. Yeah, so we need to create this gestures inside of our component. And that's what we're going to start by doing. And you can also see that we have start, and in start, they're getting the owner, and then the player.interFocused interaction mode. So they're forcing you into interaction mode. We'd want to have some way to enter focused interaction mode, like by the player. So basically, if they're holding the basketball, you could then, or the beach ball in this case, there could be a button that appears that when they tap on, enables the swipe mode. And we want to do gestures.onSwipe, which connects the local event, which has the parameter swipe direction, which turns into a console log, but we could do a local method. Okay, so with that, I think we've got enough information here to go and build this. This is the most important line, gestures equals new gestures, passing in this. Let's go ahead and do that on the local per player. We can close out of the other two since we're no longer using those. And so here, and what's interesting is this is outside of the start method. I've not seen this done before. It's quite interesting. So we'll type gestures equals new gestures, and you'll see that you need to click enter, which is going to import from the mobile gestures API, and then parentheses, and you can see it requires a component. We've created a component. This class is a component. So you see class extends component, which means this is the component. So if you type this, you get the component, which is what it's asking for. And we'll hit semicolon. And then I like a double space between these variables and there. So that looks good. Now that we've created our gestures and we have a player that we know is not the server, we can then come down here and type gestures. How did they do this? Let's double check. It was gestures.onSwipe.connect local event. Okay, so gestures dot, and you can see the different options, onSwipe dot connect local event. There's a way to get the name of the event. That's interesting. If a name is not provided, a randomly generated name is assigned. How curious. Anyway, we're going to connect the local event, parentheses, and then we need this callback. So we parentheses and we pass in a payload, which you'll see how we use that in a second. And then we arrow function just like we would with a normal event, and then semicolon. And then we want to have a local method. So we'll create a local method called onSwipe. So we'll just mirror the name there. And if we go into this payload by hovering over it, we can see what it contains, and it contains swipe event data. So then we can take that and say the parameter receiving is swipe event data, which is of type swipe event data. And make sure to click enter whenever you're typing, by the way. That adds it to this import line. And now this payload contains that, so we can now call inside of our curly braces onSwipe parentheses swipe or payload dot swipe. Oh, interesting. I guess we can just pass the payload. Yeah, the payload is swipe event data. Cool, that works. I would rename that then. I thought it was actually a payload, but it's not. So for reference, a payload typically is just a JSON wrapper, and in this case, it really wasn't. So cool. If that doesn't make sense, it's just like a JSON object. So hopefully that helps. Okay, so now we've got onSwipe being received whenever a user swipes the screen. The problem is this only works if they are in focused interaction mode, which you can see that for the demo, they have it just immediately enter focused interaction mode. We're going to do the same thing. So just for the demo to get this working, we're going to force the user into focused interaction mode. So I'm going to delete this console log and paste in player.enter focused interaction mode, and you'll remember our player is called owner. And you'll need to note that .enter focused interaction mode only works on a local script. So this only works because we have assigned it to the player and it's running on their headset, or in this case, mobile device, which is not actually their mobile device. There's some talk about that support coming in the future, potentially with the new studio, but for now, this is actually running on the server and we're using video streaming to their mobile device. So technically it's running on a different server, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, we'll continue calling local the mobile device, even if that's not technically true. Okay, so now we've entered focused interaction mode, which allows us to catch gestures for onSwipe. We need to know what this data is so we can use it. So we're going to do console log to figure out what sort of numbers we're getting. And so we can console log swipe event data, and we've got two items in here. We have the swipe direction, and we have the touches, which we were learning about earlier. And so you can see that touches is a touch state square brackets. So the reason I was reading about touches at the beginning is because I was like, oh yeah, that's important. So here you have your touch state, and touch state includes a phase, a start, previous, current, screen delta, screen traveled, so how far has it moved? Like that's a lot of information that we can utilize. And for reference, because it's an array, you're going to want the first item in the array, so item 0. But we have swipe direction, so let's start with swipe direction. And we can hover over swipe direction to see that swipe direction is of type swipe direction, which I assume is just an enum. So if we come in here and type Command F and type swipe, we can find swipe direction. And here we can see swipe direction. What is this? Swipe direction. There's 5 entries. We got these examples. Here we have declare it to have a swipe. You know, here it is. Like I said, enum. Took a while to find it, but there it is. So you have no direction, up, down, left, or right. So there's 5 directions. And if we receive none, we shouldn't do anything. If we receive down, we probably shouldn't do anything. If we receive left, maybe do something. Right, maybe do something. Up is really the one that we're most concerned about right now. So let's just focus on the up. And what we'll want to do is say swipe direction, and then we'll do plus, and then we'll do colon space. And so because it's an enum, you're going to get these strings. So when we do console log, we're going to get that string. And then we're going to add to that string with this colon space so that we can add more information about it. And then we do swipe event data dot touches. And then what we're really interested in here in touches, oh, we need touches 0, so square brackets 0. And then we're really interested in the screen traveled because I feel like that allows us to apply a certain amount of force to the physics-based object. So we'll use screen traveled to learn about the force, and then we can use some math to use that screen traveled to do stuff. Okay. Hopefully this number is like 0 to 1. Hopefully. Because if it's like, I don't know, any other number, we're going to be in some trouble. I'm going to go ahead and close the gestures APIs. I feel like we're pretty well done with that. And we are now ready to do some more testing. All right, clear and world simulation on. Jump into preview mode. You can see we had an error. Interesting. Cannot read properties of undefined reading owner. Player enter world. That's weird. Let's go ahead and stop the world. It's clear. Reset the world. Preview. That time it worked. Okay, so we're now in focused interaction mode. Don't know why it didn't work the first time, but it worked the second time. And because we're in focused interaction mode, I can now swipe with my mouse, and you can see that we got up by 0.5. And if I do from the very bottom all the way to the top, we get closer to 1. Closer to 1? No? There it is, 9.19. Oh, so it is basically tracking like how much of the screen did you swipe through. So I did left or right there. Oh, weird. I guess it has to go really fast to count as a swipe. So that was 0.76, that was 0.9. So you can see that if they go from the full bottom to the top, that's 100% force. If they do like a middle, like half of it, you can use half force. So that should give us some really great information. I'm curious about diagonal. Diagonal reported as right, and then if you get up enough, it reports as up. I think there's a way to determine if it's slightly right, slightly left, so that we can give them some swipe in the direction that they're swiping. So we're going to want to apply that as well, but we've now learned about 0 to 1. That's exactly what we wanted to know. Okay, so let's keep going to our script, and now that we've learned about screen traveled, let's leave a comment here to note that screen traveled, so I'm going to copy this, is a number between 0 and 1. So we have screen traveled, I don't know what to do here. We'll just do / number from 0 to 1 based on screen distance traveled. Okay. Okay, now that we got that set up, we're going to check out another parameter, which we have being the screen delta. Curious, what is that? Does that give me any information if I hover over it? How far it is moved as a vector 3. Now that is going to give us the actual direction. So we have the start point, or that's a time, isn't it? Previous phase. I think we really just need this screen delta. So let's go ahead and console log screen delta. Vector 3s have a .to string, but it should automatically .to string when using console log, so I wasn't too worried about it. Go ahead and clear. Oh, I can't clear because we're in. Okay. Scripts have re-executed. There we go. So we can see that we moved with, that's weird. That's not what I would have expected for a diagonal. 0, 0, 0. Why are we getting 0, 0, 0? Let's go ahead and world simulation off. Escape. World simulation clear, world simulation on, jump into preview mode, and we're in. Okay, that's better. So it's just like needed to leave and come back. Now we're getting that we moved along a certain axis by 0.02 and by 0.04. We would want to normalize this. This definitely doesn't feel like a normalized direction value. And like, what is this? What is this? I'm not sure what I'm seeing, to be honest. Let's grab from here and there. Like, what am I seeing? These numbers are weird. I don't know how to describe them. Huh. Okay, I figured it out. If you hover over it, it says how far is it moved per frame. So it's not relative to the full like swiping. It's based on the whole thing. I'm curious if there's any way we can get the direction other than screen delta, because that is definitely a problem. We have current, state this current frame. We have previous, state during the previous frame. And that's a touch info. So if we did state during the previous frame, that might be what we need. Screen traveled. How far has it moved overall? That's just, it's not giving us direction though. We really need that direction. State when the touch started. And we have the current state. I believe these touch infos will give us a direction. So let's hope I'm right. So we'll go ahead and do the start point, and then we'll do dot, and we can see the screen position. Fantastic. And then we're going to do plus the same exact thing on this, but with the end. So Control C, Control V, and then we need to add another plus symbol in here. And then between these pluses, I'm going to add some quotes. So we'll do a space with a bar in the middle so we can have some like difference here. And then this one is not the start, but it is the current. So basically the end. So we'll go ahead and hit Control Save. And what we should be able to see now is the start position and the end position, and be able to calculate between that to create a direction, to know in which direction to throw the ball. So if they give it some slight, let's go ahead and escape out of this. World simulation off, clear, world simulation on, preview. All right, here we are. And now we can see, I'm gonna go ahead and escape, just do that one to the right. We have the vector 0.4, 0.16, and it moves to 0.8, 0.75. Now you remember I started in the bottom left and then went to the top right. So this number to me looks like we are seeing the top right represented as 1, 1, and the bottom left represented as 0, 0. And so that should allow us, let's verify that. I believe that's true. Let's verify it real quick. So play, drag from 0, 0 to the top right. I gotta make it an actual swipe. There we go. Swipes, I guess, have to be fast. You can't do a slow swipe is what we're seeing. And so we can see that it does start close to 0, 0, and it ends close to 9, 9 or 1, 1. So yeah, I'm totally right. That's phenomenal. We can definitely use that to determine which direction, because we know that the center is gonna be 0.5, 0.5, but we can also subtract these to get a direction vector. So now that we have this, let's leave ourselves some comments to understand it better. So we'll hit enter, // space, paste, and then we'll say that this is a position on the screen where 0, 0, where 0, 0, 0 represents bottom left, and 1, 1, 0 represents top right. Represents, what did I do wrong? Represent, oh, extra E? No, extra E here. Sorry, okay. I like to force myself to fix spelling mistakes because then I learn to spell better. Okay, so we got these two values. We can now subtract them. And because we're going to need this outside of this, let's start by creating what we're going to call a direction. And so we're going to have this direction here. And direction needs to be a constant. So let's go and type constant. And direction will be equal to, and we need to think about this, kind of use my hands hopefully to help describe this a little bit better. And so for me, it's here. Yeah, okay. So here's the bottom left. I can't. It's reversed. It's reversed for my brain. Anyway, this is the bottom left for me. This is the top right for me. That works. So anyway, if you're thinking about a grid where this is 0, 0 and this is 1, 1, which I know is reversed, where this is, this is breaking my brain. This is really breaking my brain. I can't, it's like, it's so awful. It feels evil. It feels evil. So anyway, right here is 0, 0. Dang this, I'm so sorry. And that's 1, 1. You want the higher value to be the initial value you subtract from. This is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say if you start at 1, 1 and you subtract, I did it, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0. By starting with the larger value, you get a direction pointing towards the upper value, right? So like 1, 1 minus 0, 0 is going to point in that direction. It's really hard to visually see. Whereas if we subtracted the other way, you'd get downward, like it would point in the wrong direction. So we need to start with the higher value, which is the final value. So we start with the end value to know, and anyway, so let's do that. So we have direction equals the final value and then subtract. So Control X and Control V, and then we type dot sub and then parentheses, and now we want to subtract the start position, Control X, Control V, and now we've subtracted these two vectors, and we now have a non-normalized direction. Now what's interesting about that is that we can now place this right here, direction, and that also tells us the amount of distance moved. So before we were using screen traveled to determine the amount of distance moved, which is pretty good. I mean, it's pretty good. I like it. I like it a lot. But I'm thinking this gives us a better number that we can use. I'm thinking it does. And so what we can do is then create a constant here called distance, and we can say distance equals direction dot magnitude, and magnitude is a method, so we need to call it with parentheses. And so magnitude is going to return the distance of the vector, so it's going to tell us how long is that vector. And after we get the distance, we can then say direction dot normalize in place, normalize in place, and normalizing in place will modify this direction to be a vector, a proper direction vector with a length of 1 meter, or a length of 1. In this case, there's no, this doesn't relate to meters. Anyway, so it normalizes it to a distance of 1. Now we can console log this, so we'll say direction, and then I'll say plus parentheses, so space parenthesis plus, and then we'll do distance, and then plus closing parenthesis. All right, so it'll have in parentheses the distance after the direction, which should give us quite a bit of information that we can then use to apply to a physics-based object. We're getting so close. I know, this is much more tough than most things, but we're getting there. World simulation on. Go into preview mode. Now we're going to do a swipe, and we can see that that registered as up. It also registered as having a distance of 1.11. It represented a direction of 0.69, 0.71. That sounds fair enough. That's like a diagonal. 0.707, I think a 7 would be like a perfect diagonal, right? So like that's almost perfect. Why can't I remember the exact number? It's like 7. Anyway, this is pretty close to what I would expect. Now if we go straight up, we get 0, 1, 0. Perfect. So if we use this direction, we can apply that as force plus the forward direction of the player, and that should give us a direction that is forward, so throwing the ball forward with an up of 1, and then the force that we're applying is based off of this distance. So if we go from bottom to the top, we got 8.7. If we do from the middle, we got 0.46. It's very similar to the numbers we were getting before, but it allows for us to just more accurately track something like, did that do good? No, I didn't. I'm trying to get it. I have to let go. There it goes. So like 1.3. So if you did a full diagonal swipe, that's going to give you the biggest force. So yeah, fantastic. Now, let's add a couple more features to this to make this work a little bit better. So when you do a swipe, you have now thrown it, which means we need to exit focused interaction mode. So we need some way to enter focused interaction mode, but we also want to exit after you've done your swipe. So we'll now call owner.exit focused interaction mode. We need to save owner. So we're going to create a new property called owner, which will be of type player or undefined. And then right here, we can say, instead of constant owner, we can say this dot owner. And then we'll replace everywhere we have owner with this dot owner. Paste, paste. paste, and this dot owner question mark, and then exit focused interaction mode. There we go. Interestingly, I guess this is fine. It's happy with that. So we've exited the focused interaction mode after swiping. We now need to send this information, the direction and the distance, outward. And I think the best way to do this is to send it as an event to the player. And this is going to be a networked event. Now, I recommend creating an events file. This is not the way that everyone recommends it. It's the way that I like it. So I would create a events_data file. There we go. And then we can go open that up. And inside of events data, we're going to do the same thing we did with our previous events, or our previous data file, by typing events, or export constant events_data equals JSON object, and then we can define our events inside of here. And so this first event we're creating is called, come on, brain. Come on, brain. You got this. Sorry, it's been a long video. We're sending the data to a player, so the player has done a swipe. We used to call it on swipe. I think we can continue with that name of on swipe. So we're going to type on swipe, and then which you then type colon, and then you can say on swipe is equal to a new networked event. I don't do events very often, so this is kind of throwing me off. And then this is where we put the payload, and then parentheses, and then we put the name here, which is on swipe, and then comma at the end. And so the payload needs to, at the very minimum, be a curly braces, so an empty JSON object. Inside of this JSON object, we can now pass in the direction and the distance. And so we'll type that in, direction colon vec3, comma distance colon number, Shift Alt F. And now that we have our direction and our distance set up, we can now send that to a player. And so events can be sent to players or entities. And in this case, by sending it to the owner, anyone who wants to listen to the on swipe can receive it, which means we can have whatever they're holding start listening, and then once it's received it, stop holding and throw itself. So right here, we're now going to say send networked event. And send networked event. We're going to send it to the player, which is the owner, right? Owner. And the event is events data dot on swipe. And the payload is curly braces direction colon direction. And I know this looks confusing, but this is the way to do it. Distance colon distance, because the first one is the name and the second one is the value, so it does know how to link those up correctly. It just looks a little weird. Shift Alt F. Okay. The reason this is upset is because the owner might be undefined. Let's just verify it real quick and say if parentheses owner and curly braces and then Alt arrow up. We can then remove the question mark here. And realistically, we don't want to do anything unless there's an owner. So let's just Alt that down. And we can now delete this because I feel like we've learned all of this stuff. Those things, I wrote it out basically just to really hammer it home in my brain. Okay, now that we've done that, we now say we've got the owner, we get the direction, we get the distance, we normalize the direction, we no longer need the console log, so we'll delete that. We then send the networked event to the player. We then exit the player from focused interaction mode, and we no longer want to enter focused interaction mode right here. We now want to connect a way to get the player into focused interaction mode. And I'm kind of thinking for just the temporary, just for our tests here, let's Control-C, Control-V, and we're going to call this focused interaction mode. And this will be a networked event with no payload like information, so just blank curly braces. It'll have the same name, Control-C, double-click, Control-V, Control-Save. And with that set up, we can then receive the focused interaction mode. And so we're going to create a new method here called focused interaction mode, parentheses, and curly braces. And then right here, we're going to move that down so we can now enter focused interaction mode. We will need a question mark here just to make sure that if the player for some reason was not defined, it doesn't do anything. The player should always be defined, but just in the off chance. And then right here, what we're going to do is connect that event. So we're going to say connect code block event, parentheses. We're connecting the event. It's actually not a code block event, sorry. Connect networked event. And the networked event is going to be received from the owner. And the event is events data.innerFocused interaction mode, which has an empty payload. So we can type payload, but there really is nothing there. In fact, it doesn't even want me to put stuff there. Good. Arrow function, curly braces, and then what we want to call is the local innerFocused interaction mode. Now, technically, you could just write this one line of code right here, but if there's something else you want to do when entering focused interaction mode, it's best to have this local method. So that's why I'm going to have it set up that way. Add semicolon if you like semicolons, and control save. Now, with that set up, we can now start on the beach ball script. So the beach ball needs to, on grab start, send this networked event to enter focused interaction. It then needs to listen on grab start to the player for this on swipe event. And then when the player throws it, it needs to stop listening to the player. It's not a lot. We're almost there. It's just, like we should be able to get this done in just under an hour, and I think we're going to wrap there with just kind of like some final thoughts on ways that you could implement this and do it better, because this has been a long one. Okay. Next up, let's go ahead and create the beach ball script. And when you have an object already, I definitely like creating it at the bottom. So you click Attach Script, Create New Script. This will be called beach ball underscore entity, create and attach. And my favorite reason to create it this way is actually a little silly. Give that a moment, because I hate this part. I hate waiting for it to compile. Like, that's dumb. Come on. Like, why am I waiting for compilation? I'm just about to edit it, and it's going to have to recompile. Okay, this is taking way longer than usual. Okay, maybe I don't get to show you why I enjoy this. Let's unclick and re-click. Okay, just a new Horizon bug. Anyway, so the reason I do like it the best is the 3 dots here says edit script rather than open script, and I so much prefer edit over open. Anyway, that's, you know, pet peeve type weird stuff. Backspace some HC dots here, and then control period, enter. For reference, for those who don't have control period, you can't just backspace the T, retype the T, and click enter. That also works. On this beach ball, we now need to know when the player grabs it. So we're going to type pre-start, and in pre-start, I don't like voids here, by the way. Oh, that's why I've always deleted them. In pre-start, we need to connect the code block event from this dot entity. So we need to know when this entity or self is grabbed. And we call code block events dot grab start. And then we need to pass in the, or we're going to get the, I'm sorry, just trying to wrap this up. So we get 2 parameters, isRightHand and player. We're going to arrow function, curly braces, and now we need to call the local method on grab start, which I call grab start, parentheses, which will receive the isRightHand boolean, and the player, and curly braces. All right, we're now ready to call that inside our curly braces here, adding some semicolons because I like them. And then we're going to type in grab start, parentheses, isRightHand, and comma player. I like another semicolon there. And then I prefer this to say isRighthanded. I just find that a little bit, I don't know. I might have to change my thinking on that, but for whatever reason, I like isRighthanded better than isRightHand. One day, I might change my mind. But for now, I'm like locked in. I think this is the way it was in code blocks, which is why my brain is still wired that way. Okay, so now on grab start, there's 2 things we need to do. Number 1, we need to send the networked event to the player that grabbed us. And when we do that, we're sending the event data.enterFocused interaction mode with an empty payload. So now we have sent that player into focused interaction mode. So that's what this local script is all about. It's about communicating with the player's local headset or their local device so that we can cause things that can only be done on the local device, like entering focused interaction mode, to occur. So that's what networked events are going to do. By setting a networked event, we can communicate with their device. Now that we've entered them into focused interaction mode, we can now connect the networked event for on swipe. So parentheses, connect the player to the events data dot on swipe, and this will receive a payload, and arrow function, curly braces, add some semicolons. Now we need a local on swipe, so we'll type on swipe, parentheses, curly braces, and we know that this payload has these two values, so I can just copy that, Control C, Control V, and then make it pretty, backspace, 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 comma, and backspace. We do need to import the vec3, so I'll show you that. Backspace 3, type 3, click enter, or control period if that works for you. But I know some users, for whatever reason, control period just doesn't work, so that's another way. And now we can pass this payload by typing in on swipe, parentheses, payload dot direction, comma, payload dot distance, and then add a semicolon if you like semicolons. And now we've received on swipe, and we can now apply force to the beach ball. Now when we receive this on swipe, we want to now disconnect this event. And to do that, we can see that this should receive, does it return? It's hard to read this, to be honest. Yeah, so it returns an event subscription, so we need to save the event subscription. So I'm just going to go ahead and create up here, it's going to be called event subscription, and event subscription will be of type event subscription or undefined. And then down here we can type this dot event subscription equals, so now we have saved the event subscription, and on swipe we can say if parentheses event subscription is valid, then event subscription dot disconnect. And in fact we can make this even simpler by alt arrowing up, delete these lines, and then adding a question mark here. Way simpler, that does the same thing. So we've now disconnected the event, so we can no longer receive the on swipe from that player. So imagine they're constantly playing with different beach balls. This disconnects it as they go to the next beach ball and the next beach ball, or if that beach ball starts using a different player is playing with it. And now what we need to do is also force release self. So we say this dot entity dot as parentheses grabbable entity, and then dot force release to release it from the player's grip. And after force releasing it, we can then apply force. I believe this will take a second, so I think we're going to want to put this in an async, but just to try it out, we're now going to say this dot entity dot as parentheses physical entity, and then dot force or apply force. And I'm trying to remember which one I use most. I think it's apply force, and like local force applies a force to a world space point, adds to the current velocity. I think this is the one we want to use. So we'll go apply force, parentheses, and then the force is, remember we need to know the player. We don't have the player saved right now, so we're going to add another Control C, Control V. And this is going to be the holder, so we know who is currently holding. So that will be of type player undefined. And then on grab start, we can set holder to be equal to player. Now that we've saved that, we can down here say if parentheses holder is defined, we then have a holder which will give us their forward direction. So we want to say constant player forward equals holder dot forward dot get. And now that we have the forward direction of the player, we can then add to that forward direction. And we know that player forward is a 1 vector, and so that should be good. So we'll say player forward dot add. So we're going to add to the player's forward with the direction, and then this direction dot multiplied by some force. And so let's say we multiply it by 3. That should give us our ability to change how much up value is being applied. You might also need to multiply the player forward But you could also do, in fact, I'd actually recommend right here at the end, typing another dot multiply, parentheses by 1, and then comma. So what you're seeing here is the player forward gets added to by some amount of up. So this determines how much up force is going to be applied. And then this final multiplier applies like an additional amount of force. So this kind of creates how much up versus forward is applied. And then this one is like, let's take that direction we've calculated and multiply it to give it even more force. So if you need more force than the default, you can change that. If you need it to be more up, you can change that. And then after that, we need to apply the physics force mode. And I prefer physics force mode called velocity change. That just prevents other velocities from affecting the force that you're applying. And the only thing that I'm thinking might go wrong here, interesting, we didn't use the distance. The distance should be right here. So we say direction dot multiplied by 3, but we want to use distance multiplied by 3. So we take that distance and use that to scale how much up value we're applying. And in that case, I might change this to 5 because this number is rarely 1. Yeah, like it could be 0.2 if it's a small swipe. Yeah, I guess that should be fine. We'll have to test it. We're going to test it here in a minute. It's going to be fun. I can't wait to test this. So the only thing that could go wrong is that we're applying the force at the same time that we're force releasing. And so that might be something we need to play with. Okay, I think we're done. What the heck? Just under an hour. Let's go. All right, world simulation on. Jump into preview mode. We can walk around because we're not forcibly pushing us into focused interaction mode. We grab this. Now we're in focused interaction mode. We can then swipe up. Nothing. Yeah, so it didn't apply the force because the force release, just like I suspected. So what we need to do is then just add a quick async delay. And the easiest way to do this, we don't have that feature in this world yet. It's a thing I built for a different world. It's a utility. It's cool. One day I'll make it public and teach it. It's really cool. But for this case, we need to use, I'm going to put it right here and call async dot set timeout parentheses arrow function curly braces comma. We'll do a 1 frame delay of 50 milliseconds. Might be closer to 2 frames, but that's totally fine. Press enter, move all of that up, alt arrow, and then backspace, control save. Okay, so now after a 50 millisecond delay, it'll then apply the force. Let's try that out. Clear. World simulation off, escape, just because that seemed to be an issue earlier. World simulation off, clear. Compilation appears to have completed. World simulation on, preview, walking over, grabbing, all right, and swipe up. Nice. It definitely needed more multiplier, but like, that's great. That's a great start. So now let's give it some more force. Let's go to our multiplier here at the end and change this one to 3. Change this one to maybe 10 and press Control Save and see what that looks like. Give that a moment to compile. And at this point, it's now just finesse, getting it to be exactly what you'd like it to be. And then each physics-based object can use its own multiplication, right? So this beach ball might perform differently than something else, but everything can tie into that on-swipe callback. Like anything that needs to use this on-swipe feature can, which is pretty neat. Preview mode, go ahead and walk in. And I'm wondering if it also is variation based on which way I'm looking. So we'll go ahead and grab it here and then swipe. Oh boy. Oh boy. Might have done a little too much. World simulation off. Yeah, it does get pretty intense. So like the finesse here is going to be important. So I'm going to change that back down to 5, Control Save, and see if we get something a little bit better. You could also make these properties in the properties panel of the beach ball, especially if you're going to use this on different types of balls, but it's the same script on all the balls. World simulation on, right click and preview. Go ahead and grab and swipe, and grab and big swipe. Nice, nice. It definitely needs a little bit more forward because you can't really see it. So I would lower that value right here from 5 down to 3. Change this maybe from 3 to 5. Control Save, see what that does. And Yay! Okay, one last test, and then it's basically you're off on your own. Now, I'd mentioned earlier this idea of having a button. That's a very complicated topic. I actually really love the way this works. It's so simple. It's so obvious. I feel like users on mobile are going to get this. So this is probably how I'm going to implement it in my world. But you could create a button, and when you press that button, it then calls focus interaction. And that would be like, it's so simple. Maybe I'll even show it. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Well, let's try this out. We've got time. All right, so we picked it up. We swipe forward. It throws forward more. Nice. Pick it up. Throw it more. It throws forward nicely. That's so perfect. That is so perfect. Okay. So last thing here. What I recommend you do is go into player settings and turn off the, there's a few settings I would change, like deny world entry, change it to scripted dialogue only. I'd also turn on custom player movement there's so many ways to use custom player movement, and but hide action buttons by default. This is what I wanted to show you. Hide action buttons by default needs to be checked. And when that's checked, if we go into preview mode, where is that button now? Where did they change? Where did they move that to? 3 dots? Here it is. Preview device, change that to mobile. And now when we go into preview mode, you'll see what it looks like to be on a phone. And there are no buttons, and this still should behave the same. Nice. But we need a button so that they can press it to enter focus interaction mode. So when they're ready to throw it, they can throw it. And so over here, we have the primary action icon. We can select that and change it to, let's see, is there like a throw icon? Here we have throw. Okay, so we got our primary action icon set to throw, and we know that the primary action is the index trigger, so we can then go into our script and grab another one. So we have grab start goes first, they grab the item, and then after grabbing the item, we want to have the index down, and then parentheses, which is received with the player, player, and curly braces. And on index down, that's when we want to send this networked event and do this whole thing. So we're just going to move these 2 lines down here to index down. And then up here on pre-start, we need to connect that. So I'm just going to duplicate this line, Control-C, Control-V. We're connecting the index trigger down. And I guess I should change this to match. So we'll call this index trigger down. Index trigger down is just received with the player, so pass in player. We're now going to link up to index trigger down, the local method, removing the is right hand. And now that has been linked to that. So now you have to press that button to be able to swipe. This should be a much better user experience. Wow, that was easy. World simulation on, preview, walking over, grabbing, still doesn't do anything. Click the throw icon and swipe. Nice. Running over. Let's go to the other side. Or I can pick it up, right? I can run around with it, and then I can hit the throw icon and swipe. I mean, come on now. Come on now. That's good. That's good. All right. So, we're done! Yeah! Okay, that was a long one. I hope you enjoy it. There's so much there. Definitely harder topic, but a really fun one. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll see you in Horizon. Don't forget to join our Discord, links in the description. Great place to ask for help. YouTube doesn't always surface comments, and sometimes it just deletes them, so definitely Discord's the way to go. All right, I will see you there. See you in Horizon. Bye! I forgot something. Sorry about that. We didn't try swiping in a direction. Let's give that a go. So, world simulation on, preview, walking over. Forgot you got to click and hold on mobile preview. So the question is swipe in a direction. Oh, hit the button and swipe. Whoa! Okay, that was really good. That was really good. Let's go get it. Let's do that one more time. One more time. That was fun. Grab. I knew it would work, but I just was doing straight up swipes. I didn't even think to try like a slight swipe. Why did that go in the wrong direction? Let's try it one more time. One more time. Did I forget something? Let's see. Maybe that was just weird. What the heck? Oh no, is it reversed? But it worked well the first time. What the heck? Oh, Oh, because the direction is in world space, isn't it? Oh, it's not relative. We've got a couple fixes to make. Ay, ay, ay. Well, that was a false ending. Yeah, it works if you're aligned with world space. It doesn't work if you're not. I should have thought about that. I should have thought about that. How did I not think about that? Okay, well, good thing we caught it. Okay. One more time. Exhausted a little bit, but we're going to be okay. So here on the beach ball script, what we need to do is apply the direction to the up and left and right of the player. And so we were getting the player forward, but we also need to get the player left and the player right. And realistically, we just need to get the player right because we can multiply. We're doing rightward direction. So for anyone who hasn't seen enough of my videos, we're basically going to use the cross product. So you take the forward direction and the upward direction and then cross it, and you get either left or right. I can never remember. So we're just going to guess and hope we're right. We get a 50% chance. That's pretty good. And then we just reverse it if we're wrong. So we're going to duplicate this, Control-C, Control-V. So we're now going to change this from player forward to player right word. Right word? That's a word, apparently. I have a spell checker. It says that's a word. And then we've got the forward. So we're going to just type player forward because we already have it. And then you do player forward dot cross. And then we're going to cross that with the up direction, right? And the up direction is just vec3.up. We don't need to get their players up because you can't make players go upside down, or at least you shouldn't. So vec3.up. And now we've got our player rightward direction. And if I'm wrong, we just reverse this. So put the vec3.up on the left and player forward on the right. Okay. Now that we have the player rightward, we know that the direction it's two parts. It's an up value and it's a right value, where the first number is the amount to go right and the second number is the amount to go up. And so if we take the player forward, we know we're going to use that. We have the player rightward, and then we need to know the amount up. So we're going to type constant amount up, which will be equal to vec3 dot up, and then we're going to take that and dot multiply it by the amount up in the direction. So we take direction and then dot the y value of direction is how much we want to go up by. So that's our amount up. And then the constant amount right is equal to vec3, it's the player rightward direction. So we take the player rightward direction and then we dot multiply that by the secondary value, which is direction dot x. And if they swipe in the other direction, it should go left instead of right. So now that we've got the amount up and the amount right, we can add those two together to get our new direction. And so we'll call this the relative direction, which is a constant. So let's type constant relative direction equals amount up dot add amount right. Okay, so now we've got the relative direction. And with that relative direction, we can replace the direction we were using previously, and everything should be fine. I hope. I mean, theoretically that works. Yeah, we'll see. I'm so nervous. I'm so done with this video, which, no offense to you guys, obviously. I'm like, it's been an hour of straight recording, so I'm exhausted. Play. Let's give it a shot. Here goes nothing. And swipe to the right. Swipe to the right. I mean, I think that's reversed. That was reversed, right? Let's do that again. So we just need to switch the cross product, like I was saying. So if we go face this way and swipe, oh my goodness, hit the swipe button, then swipe left. Yeah, it's reversed. Okay, but that's good news. The good news is it is perfectly reversed, which means we know that it's working. We just need to use the correct cross. So basically I was using a leftward direction instead of rightward. So now to make this correct, we just Control X and then type vec3 dot up and then put the forward right here, Control Z, Control Save, and give that a second to compile. Oh, I'm very happy. I'm happy it's working. I am very happy. Preview, grab, swipe to the, oh my gosh, every single time. Every single time okay. I'm expecting it to pop up as soon as I grab it, but I have to hit this button, which I feel like is unfortunate. Now that seemed to swipe incorrectly. Let's try that to the left. All right. Oh my gosh. I will get there. I will get there. Click, swipe left. Yep, now it's working. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, so we're gonna do a slight swipe to the right. Perfect. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, now let's do a slight swipe to the left. It's a tongue twister. Okay, I hate this. I hate this so much. I really want it to be automatic. I don't think I like that when I pick it up I can't just throw it. I know that's a good feature. There's something about it. Okay, it's working. I'm gonna have to think about it some more, but I like it. We're good. We done did it. If you have any questions, Discord, link in description. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you in Horizon. Bye!